And after that you just close your entity with the end and the name of entity, so your entity just has a one name is an entity's keyword, and you will finish your entity with the keyword n and the name of entity. And don't forget to put the semicolon here and semicolon after the parenthesis. When you define your entity, after that it's time to go to the architecture. But let me tell you something. You have different kind of ports. Some port is input, some port is output, some port is in and out. It means that it can be input and output, and some of them are a buffer. So when you define your entity, you define your port into inside the entity, and now it's time to define your architecture. Each entity can have one or more than one architecture. For example, some entity has 5 architecture, some entity has one architecture. For today example, your entity has just one architecture. Actually, architecture can work like a child, and entity can be their parents. For example, parents can have more than one child. But for this session, you can be sure that your entity have just one child. Okay, so after entity, after actually the parent, we are going to find the child. Architecture. Again, you use the keyword architecture. The name of the architecture of here must be the name of entity. Actually, the name of the parents, like a child that have parents, and in their ID card, the name of the parents should be right. Okay. So, for example, if the name of the entity is, for example, lab 8, so here must be lab 8, here must be lab 8, and also here must be lab 8. And the name of the architecture can be anything that you like, it's up to you. And after that, be careful when your architecture is finished, you should write the keyword and the name of the architecture. And in the architecture, between the begin and end, you should write your code, different code. For example, XOR gate, AND gate, OR gate, how you assign the different output to the one variable and everything. I will explain it for you with some example. Don't worry, just be careful that this is the architecture of the VHDL programming language. Now this is one example. At first you should define the library. For example, we use the library IEEE. It's like for example, C programming language. When you use include blah blah, it means that you invite some library. Or for example, in Java programming, when you use import blah blah, it means that you invite some library. Or for example, in the Python, you use the import, for example, tkinter module. It means that you invite the library. And also here you use the VHDL code, and you should define the library that you are going to use, their function, your gate, and something like this. And after that, you use this one. This is actually the package, and this is the working like a subsection of the package. And when you use the all, it means that you can use all the gates of that package. So these two lines just working like a include, for example, stdio.h in the C programming language. After that, we define our entity. We can see keyword entity, the name of the entity is, and here we define our port. You can see this port has the in, and the type of the in is logic, and this port, the out, we define as an output, and the type of the output is logic. After that, don't forget to put the semicolon, and here we end our entity. Here we begin our entity, and here we close our entity. And then the letter here must be the same as here, and must be the same as the name of the project. After that, actually the parent